The King and the Sparrow. A cold wind carved through the ancient kingdom of Aurelius when the impossible happened. Its mighty king, a ruler feared and adored across vast lands, was brought to his knees by a sparrow. It began on a morning drenched in gold. The palace courtyard glowed beneath the rising sun, its marble floors shimmering like quiet water. Servants rushed, guards stood tall, and nobles whispered stories of the king's unmatched strength. King Aldric of Aurelius, broad-shouldered, steel-eyed, crowned with iron discipline, was preparing for a victory parade celebrating his conquest over 3 rival provinces. But as he stepped into the courtyard, the celebration came to an abrupt halt. A tiny sparrow, ragged, frail, trembling, sat directly in his path. Its right wing hung limp, broken. Its feathers were dull with dust. Yet its eyes stared directly at Aldric without fear, almost as if it expected something from him. Whispers rippled through the crowd. "Your Majesty, allow me." A guard stepped forward, raising his boot, ready to crush the creature and clear the path. But the sparrow didn't move. It didn't flutter. It didn't flee. It simply waited. And for reasons he could not explain, King Aldric raised his hand, stopping the guard. "Bring it to the healer," he commanded. Gasps followed. A king who'd sent armies into war without hesitation was now ordering the rescue of a bird? People exchanged puzzled glances. Aldric ignored them, because as he looked into the sparrow's trembling body, he felt something he had not felt in years, a flicker of mercy trying to break through the armor of pride he had built around himself. The palace healer inspected the bird. "Majesty, its wing is fractured. It may live, or it may die. Hard to say." Aldric nodded, then said something that shocked everyone. "I will care for it myself." The words surprised even him. King Aldric, feared conqueror, keeper of the Iron Throne, had not personally cared for anything fragile since he was a boy. He carried the sparrow into his private chambers, placed it gently in a small woven basket, and for the first time in many years, his hands trembled, not from battle, but from responsibility. Over the next days, life in the kingdom continued as usual. But something in the king began to shift. Every morning, before court meetings, he checked on the sparrow. He fed it crumbs of rye bread, offered droplets of water from a silver spoon, and spoke to it in the quiet moments when no one watched. "Why did you sit in my path?" he asked it one morning as it blinked weakly. "Why choose me?" There was no answer, but the king found himself wanting one. Weeks passed. The sparrow slowly healed. Its wings strengthened. Its feathers regained color. And something else changed. King Aldric began noticing things he had long ignored. He saw the exhaustion in his servants' faces. He heard the unspoken fear in the guards' voices. He realized the kingdom he ruled with an iron fist did not respect him. They obeyed him. Obedience born from fear is brittle. Respect born from compassion is unbreakable. One morning, as the king placed crumbs in front of the little bird, the sparrow suddenly hopped to the edge of the basket. Then it fluttered, just a moment, testing its wing, and for the first time it chirped. A soft, fragile sound. But it pierced Aldric deeper than any blade ever had. He smiled. A real smile. The kind he had forgotten how to make. But the moment shattered when the palace doors burst open. General Kaler, stern, armored, battle-hardened, strode in. "Your Majesty, grave news. Rebels have risen in the Eastern Valley. They defy your rule. They prepare to attack the capital." Aldric stiffened. "Then we march." The general hesitated. "Majesty, forgive me, but the men whisper. They say you've grown soft. They say the bird has changed you." Silence fell. The king stood, taller, stronger, more grounded than he had felt in years. "Prepare the army," he ordered. "I will address the kingdom." But as he turned to leave, The sparrow fluttered weakly to the edge of the table, chirping again, louder this time. As if warning him, Aldric paused. For the first time, he wondered if the real threat wasn't the rebels outside, but the rebellion growing inside his own heart. He walked toward the balcony, unaware that this tiny creature had already altered the course of the entire kingdom, and the greatest test of his life had only just begun. The great bronze bells of Aurelius thundered across the kingdom as King Aldric stepped onto the royal balcony. Below him, thousands of citizens filled the courtyard, soldiers still armored from training, merchants with dust on their clothes, mothers holding their children, elders leaning on canes, all waiting for their king to speak. Aldric scanned their faces. Once he would have seen only subjects. Now he saw people, tired, hopeful, frightened, alive. He raised his hand. "My people," he began, his voice deep and steady, "I stand before you not as a conqueror, but as a man who has realized something grave." The crowd stiffened. "For many years, I ruled through strength alone. I believed fear kept peace. I believed victory made a kingdom great." He paused, breath tightening. But a kingdom is not great because its enemies kneel. It is great when its people stand tall. Murmurs rose, some confused, some hopeful. The king continued, "A rebellion brews in the east. They accuse me of forgetting my people. And though they fight unjustly, their claim holds truth." Gasps shot through the crowd. General Kaler watched with disbelief. This was not the king he knew. Aldric placed a hand over his heart. "I will march, yes, but not to crush them. I will march to listen." Silence. Not a sound in the courtyard. No king had ever said such words. But before anyone could react, a sudden shadow swept across the sky. A falcon, massive, sharp-taloned, dived toward the balcony. Citizens screamed. Guards reached for swords. But the king did not move. Because the sparrow, the same fragile creature he had nursed from the brink of death, burst from his chamber behind him and flew directly into the falcon's path. It collided with the predator, knocking it slightly off course. The falcon screeched, slashing the air, but the sparrow soared again, wildly, desperately, drawing the predator away from the king. The struggle lasted only seconds, but it felt like eternity. Then, with one final chirp that echoed like a farewell, the sparrow fell. Down, 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 crashing onto the marble floor far below. The falcon soared away, defeated. Gasps spread like wildfire. Shock. Horror. The king's jaw clenched, pain ripping through him with unstoppable force. He descended the steps faster than his guards could follow. He pushed through the crowd, dropped to his knees, and lifted the tiny broken body into his hands. The same way he once found it in the courtyard. The tiny chest rose once. "Barely," Aldric whispered, voice trembling. Why protect me?" The sparrow blinked weakly, its final breath warm against his fingers. And then it went still. For a long moment, the king did not move. The world felt hollow. Silent. A single tear fell from his eye, landing on the bird's feather. Something shattered in him, something cold, ancient, and heavy. He rose slowly, turning to face his kingdom, holding the sparrow in his palm like a fallen soldier. "This," Aldric declared, voice trembling but powerful, "is the cost of fear. The smallest among us should never have to die to remind the greatest among us to see." The people stared, moved beyond words. He lifted his hand higher. "In honor of this small, brave creature, I make this vow. No more will fear rule Aurelius. No more will swords speak before voices are heard." General Kaler stepped forward. "Majesty, what are your orders?" Aldric took a long breath. "We ride to the east, not for war, but for peace. Anyone who marches with me marches for a new Aurelius." The courtyard erupted, not with cheers, but with something stronger, belief. When the king reached the gates to mount his horse, a soft breeze swept past him. He didn't see it, but if he had looked up, he would have noticed a single feather drifting through the air, glowing softly in the sunlight. And though the sparrow was gone, its message echoed in every heartbeat that followed. Sometimes the smallest life teaches the greatest king.